Hi, I'm Sinead Larkey of Awards Daily, and I'm here with Rodney Barnes, the EP of Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So I'd like to start with a sort of literal and metaphorical softball of a question, which is, what is your relationship to basketball and to this Lakers team in particular? Sort of everyone has an origin of how they became a basketball lover, and I would.
Well, right around this time, I'd say probably around 1977, I fell in love with the NBA. I knew that it existed when I was a kid, but I didn't really, it didn't hit my radar until Dr. J in 1977 kind of captured my imagination. And it's ironic that they always played, with the exception of the first year, they played the Portland Trail Blazers, but they played the Lakers after that in the championship. So then the Lakers became part of sort of my orbit as well. And those Lakers were, the Magic Johnson, Kareem, winning time Lakers, for lack of a better reference. And in fact, I remember as a kid watching the game where Magic had 42 points, and the thing that we recreate in our show.
Mm-hmm. And was this idea sort of always something that you had in the back of your mind? Because I don't know how many people know this, but I mean, just you could make a documentary just about how this show came to be. It's been something that's been in the works for a really long time. So when did you get involved, and how has sort of that original maybe seed of an idea morphed into what we see?
Well, the story that I tell when people ask that question is Jim Hecht was the beginning. He read the book that Showtime by Jeff Pearlman, and he got the book to Adam McKay. Adam McKay read the book. He loved the book. He got it to HBO. HBO hired Max Borenstein. Max Borenstein hired me. And that's sort of how it all came together. And I think for me, growing up in the era, it wasn't just about the basketball. It was about everything else that was happening in politics and society, race, gender issues, everything that sort of was the backdrop behind or walking with basketball at that time. So for me, it was the opportunity just to be able to be part of recreating something that I fondly remember. And sentiment is always a good motivator for me to sort of take on a task.
Mm-hmm. And in anytime you're adapting something that's based on real life and real people, you sort of have a fine balance of wanting to honor those real life figures, but then also, you're making a TV show, and there's been some talk about maybe some scenes that aren't as accurate and all that kind of stuff. What was your approach to sort of getting that balance correct?
Well, I think, for us, we did a lot of research. We're really respectful in our opinions. I think we really did our due diligence to find out the details of what happened. And you're absolutely correct. When you're trying to take a year or two of life and crunch it down to 10 hours of television, you sort of have to create the glue or find composite characters to sort of meet real life people and to do a lot of things to make it work. But, again, we always say that this is a sort of a love letter of appreciation to the Laker organization, the NBA in general, and just the history of the game that all of us appreciate. Everybody here is a fan. And so we never would want to do anything that's disparaging to any of the players. We try to create a balance. In all human beings, we have virtues and vices, and we do our best to sort of create some semblance of balance between those two dynamics. And I'm pretty proud of what we did. And I hope that at some point, some of the folks who are involved who may not feel that way would come to sort of soften. But then again, I understand that if someone was telling the story of my life and I wasn't a part of that telling, I might feel a way as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no one can know me exactly like I know me, but there are things that I've done over the course of my life that you could chronicle. And so I think that's sort of, especially when you're talking about a game, as far as basketball, we saw it on television. We remember what we remember. And so we're just trying to capture, all aspects of a person and hopefully highlight them in a positive way.
And how would you describe your role as an EP? Are you super involved, or are you there the days that they're shooting? Sort of, what is your day-to-day like?
Well, it varies. I mean, I'm credited with co-writing 9 of 10 episodes. As far as the writing process is concerned, I act in the show as well, and also I'm on set as well and working with the actors as well. So a lot of different hats.
And was there a moment when you were on set where you sort of stood back and went, okay, I think we got it? You know what I mean? Like where everything started to come together, and was there a moment that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think with any show, and I've been blessed to work on several, that there's a point when you realize not only is the show coming together from a creative place, but a collective place as a group of people coming together. We're all sort of finding our way as a group and knowing how to make this show. We become a family. And for us, I think we hit that stride around episode 4. I think at the beginning, because we had this gap because of COVID between when the pilot um, was shot and then episodes 2 and on. And in the beginning, we're all sort of figuring out, hey, what was that thing we did in the pilot? Oh yeah, we were doing this. And so to be able to gain some semblance of traction took a minute, but once we found it, and this show has so many moving parts. So to be able to get all of those parts to sort of function in unison took a minute.
And as you mentioned, you did wear so many hats, and you do have, writing credits for the show. How did you balance those hats? And then how did you balance in the writing sort of making these characters fully fledged in showing us how good of an athlete they were, but also everything that was going on behind the scenes and sort of that charisma, like all of that had to be in the script for it to come across. And so what was how did you do what you did?
Well, I think not to say the break that COVID gave us the opportunity to write all of the scripts before we started shooting. And I think any qualitative aspect to what the show is, as far as the writing is concerned, can be chalked up to our entire team. Everyone involved. We all sort of committed ourselves over the course of this past 3+ years to figure the show out. I mean, we wrote it a number of times, continuously kneading it like dough until we got to a place where we felt like everybody who occupied a certain aspect of narrative real estate was covered. To your point, when you were talking about each character, we sort of went through each one and made sure everybody who was on screen was getting the proper amount of love. So, I think in regards to the writing, we just had a lot of time. And usually in television, you don't have that.
And in terms of the basketball sequences and the game sequences, I mean, they're just electrifying. And as somebody who was not old enough to be able to watch them on TV, I mean, I could imagine that that's what it felt like to be in that room and to be a spectator. Can you tell me a little bit about how they came together? And as somebody who does have memories of what that time was like, did you feel like you captured it?
Very much so. Todd Van Hazel, our director of photography, a lot of that stuff, how the basketball looks, got to give props to him and Don Ravine, who was our basketball coordinator and choreographed a lot of that stuff. All of our great ADs who work with the players as well. Yeah, I mean, I remember because the way we shoot basketball is we're telling a story of basketball. We're not just, it may look like we're sort of recreating a basketball game, but we shoot just enough basketball to continue the narrative that you've seen before the basketball began. So we're just capturing moments, iconic moments oftentimes, or basketball that sort of highlights characters that we're trying to highlight within an episode. So for those slices that you see, they're pivotal slices. And, again, you got to chop it up to everybody who was a part of that process. And I think for me, it does take me back to 1979 and 1980 and say, yeah, that's exactly what I remember. which was a long time ago.
And you did have a sort of bit part acting. I think you were one of the security.
I was Maurice, the head of Lakers security.
Yeah.
Maurice is a very pivotal character, the anchor that I would say, the anchor of this cast. No, but it was, I would apologize to every actor I was in a scene with. My first scene was with Adrian Brody, who plays our Pat Riley. And I had to, my job was to stop him from getting into the forum. And I would apologize to Adrian, like, you deserve better. You deserve way better than this. God bless you for being in this scene with me, allowing me to be in this scene. But no, it was fantastic because we have a fantastic cast. So anytime I got an opportunity to play in a scene with them was a true honor.
Did you catch an acting bug? Or are we gonna see you in other
Maurice is coming back for season 2, but as far as the acting bug is concerned, I'm happy being behind the camera. You know, I don't sort of I don't call what I do acting. You know, I was a security guard at one point in my life. So I'm actually just being big and intimidating, which I think I sort of walk through life as being as well. So I'm just being me.
Okay. And in terms of season 2, is there anything that you can tell me about it? I mean, how far are we into the planning process here?
We're still going through some of the formative stages right now. All I can say is from everything that we're charting, the course that we're charting is an exciting one. And I think the fans of the show will be really happy with where we're going.
And is there anything I haven't asked you about that you wanted to mention? Is there a particular moment that you feel was challenging or worth highlighting?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I look at the story of Spencer Haywood and his wrestling with addiction, and I'm sort of proud of that entire storyline because, again, to remind myself for the 10th time, I'm old enough to remember a lot of really bad sports themed movies and television shows where African-American athletes oftentimes were portrayed as just enjoying getting high for the sake of getting high. And I think because addiction has sort of swept our country in a very unique way, oftentimes it's connected to trauma. And being able to speak to Spencer Haywood's trauma, in my opinion, sort of moved the needle in the way that these types of stories were told. And very, very proud of that. I mean, my whole motivation as a writer is to sort of evolve the way certain groups have been handled over the course of television history. And if I can play a little part in trying to move that needle in a positive direction, there's no better thing for me to do.
Absolutely. And the dimension here is remarkable because on the one hand, you're, watching these fun basketball scenes, but there's so much more that's going on beneath the surface. And the fact that you were able to touch on all of those things is really remarkable. And thank you so much for your time and congratulations. Hopefully we'll meet again for season 2.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to talk.